Number 10, the Joker, though yes, the Joker managing to defeat Superman by making him accidentally kill his wife and child in injustice is cool, and it does result in the Man of Steel losing all moral code. This isn't the biggest victory the clown has managed over DC's biggest hero. Why? Because it doesn't take place in the canon DC universe, whereas there's a similar story that very much does. Enter Action Comics number 719, a strong contender for inspiring injustice itself. Not to mention a fantastic story in its own right. When the Joker poisons Lois Lane, Superman becomes slightly more irate than in his usual dealings with the Jester, aware that there is currently a time limit on saving the love of his life. The Alabaster Jester is also aware of this, and so offers the hero a choice. He can save Lois by injecting the Joker with the same poison, which will make the clown's blood into the cure, but this will come at the cost of the Joker's life, meaning Kent will be directly responsible for killing him. Batman and Superman get into a huge fight over this before rushing back to Lois' bedside to see her last breaths, only for her to wake up upon the cusp of death. Realizing the whole thing was the world's most painful prank, Superman suddenly becomes aware that the Joker almost made him compromise everything he stands for, leaving him for then a little shaken. Number 9, Alfred, Injustice. Okay, so this one is a bit of a catch-22. In Injustice, most of the characters eventually take a pill called 5U93R, which gives them heightened strength and endurance. Alfred, Batman's beloved elderly butler, does also take one of these, giving him abilities far beyond his usual. But crucially, these still aren't quite superpowers, but rather physical enhancement, sort of like a legal Batman-approved steroid, and so when Alfred take it, he is still an old man, just an old man who's roided to hell, and also coincidentally furious that Superman is trying to ruin the life of Bruce Wayne seemingly any way he can. This scenario leads us to the unforgettable scene where Pennyworth begins beating down on the surprised Man of Steel, shouting all the while about how much his family has suffered because of Superman. It's incredibly intense. And also a beautifully badass moment for a character who rarely manages to get them in the regular DC series, despite having a pretty intense military background. Number 8. General Sam Lane. Sam Lane has managed to defeat Superman in one profoundly unexpected way. In the age-old art of emotional sabotage. As Lois Lane's father hates the Man of Steel, going as far as to help Luthor create Metallo and Secret Origins, but in the rebooted universe, Lois is still close to her father, even if it is begrudgingly so. As such, Supes is at a loss to take him on, as he doesn't really want to either kill his father-in-law or have him sent to jail. Between this and Lane's high standing due to his military background, the man has managed to get away with all sorts of plans against Superman, including sending Wraith after him and trying to have him arrested. Although ultimately these plans never completely succeed, the Man of Steel still appears to be at a total loss in how to deal with them, meaning that, while he was alive, the former general and senator could get away with doing whatever he wanted to the helpless metahuman. Number 7, Muhammad Ali. Somehow, Superman vs. Muhammad Ali takes a storyline where the pair are kidnapped by aliens and forced to duke it out, and then makes it into a completely heartwarming story. While you'd think that the friendship that forms between the real-life professional boxer and the imaginary superhero would feel forced or fake, there's something about it that works incredibly well, after all. Both Ali and the Man of Steel want the same things, for people to be treated right, for people to be considered equal, and for at least one incredibly cool fight a week minimum. And they certainly got it the week of this comic, with the two squaring off in a boxing ring that was customized to remove Superman's powers. Though Clark certainly isn't a pushover, he lacks the skills of the professional heavyweight who give him a proper boxing seeing too before knocking him out with one brutal right hook. Number 6, Lex Luthor. Of all the figures in the world to take out the Man of Steel, Lex Luthor is perhaps the most obvious. While he doesn't often get his climactic victory over Superman, he's managed it on a fair few occasions over the years. Likely partially out of sympathy on the writer's side, given he has to lose so damn much. When he isn't killing Superman with deadly kryptonite beams and other assorted death traps, he's defeating the hero in other, less obvious ways. Perhaps Luthor's most substantial victory over his alien rival was when he managed to join the Justice League, because it's sort of like the person you hate most managing to join your closest group of friends. Lex's victories are a perfect way to leave us rooting for the beloved America extraterrestrial, because we see just how human Kent is and still trying to help Luthor even after he's hurt him so many times. A similar thing can also be said for the baldy Gomaniac. As every single time he defeats Superman, you hate him just that little bit more. Number 5. Batman. While Batman is the most powerful character to ever not have superpowers, his fights with Superman are still hugely important, and not just because they're the topic of endless arguing on internet forums. There have been plenty of fights between Batman and Superman, and the pair come out with fairly even wins and losses between them, especially when you count the ties that comics tend to settle for when the two square off. Batman's victories tend to mean far more, though, as it shows that even a demigod of a man can still be defeated given some proper planning and sweet sparring skills. Although Batman clearly doesn't have a monopoly on beating his Kryptonian comrade, he's one of few people to not need special circumstances to be able to beat Supes, although he does get them in a fair few cases. Number 4. Harley Quinn. 30 years after the iconic boxing match between Harley Quinn and Muhammad Ali, the writers of Harley's Little Black Book decided to relive the experience the glorious 1978 comic gave us by having Harley also trounce the Man of Steel. The scenario is basically entirely the same as the one between Ali and Kent, as the pair box against one another in a ring that takes away Supes' powers. However, it is equally as unfair, as we learn beforehand that Quinn has been practicing boxing since she was a kid, whereas Superman generally doesn't have time given the whole usually found saving the world thing. After reenacting the knockout that Muhammad Ali managed, Harley and Superman manage to escape the clutches of their alien captor, though not before our red and blue hero realizes why Quinn is such a threat to other heroes like Batman. Number 3. Rezalgal. A classic in the annals of comic history, Tower of Babel reminds us about two important things. Firstly, that you are never too powerful to be beat in the DC universe, and secondly, that Batman really needs a therapist. Because after the Dark Knight realizes how strong his teammates are, he builds specific plans to defeat them should he ever need to, presumably deciding that creating saw traps is easier than learning to trust his friends. These plans are then, perhaps unsurprisingly, stolen by Rezalgal, who uses them to defeat each individual member of the Justice League, including Superman. The Man of Steel is subjected to the unique torment of a specifically crafted kryptonite, which makes his skin go see-through. Initially, this is hilarious, but then Clark starts screaming, and it's revealed that this translucent skin means the sunlight that powers him goes straight into his internal organs, making him so energized that he has to focus on not exploding, and then suddenly it's considerable. Number 2. Deathstroke. If there's one smart thing that Deathstroke does that few other villains seem to, it's that he accepts that the Man of Steel could absolutely murder him under any fair set of circumstances. As such, he sets about changing the field the only way he knows how, by some truly underhanded shenanigans. Slade uses the force field of the icon suit he wears to absorb Supes' punches, until the armor becomes overloaded. As it overloads, it reflects the energy it absorbed outwards, sending the force of the Man of Steel's brutality back of him. It's such a powerful attack that this reflection bursts all of Kent's blood vessels, which leaves him looking suitably furious because, to be fair, getting blood out of that costume does look like it'd be a fresh nightmare. Number 1. Green Arrow. Perhaps the most infamous defeat of Superman by non-powered figures comes in the final pages of iconic The Dark Knight Returns comic. Green Arrow and Batman team up to take Superman down in one last fight. Before Batman fakes his own death and goes underground, both figuratively and literally. Though it's the Dark Knight who physically beats Supes up. It's actually the Green Arrow who's responsible for weakening him to the point that the Bat can actually have any effect on him. Oliver Queen shoots an arrow made of kryptonite at the Man of Steel, which maybe doesn't sound all that impressive until you learn he does so upside down with his one remaining arm while dangling from a fire escape. Supes catches this speeding projectile but is still exposed to the effects of the crystal, taking away his considerable powers to the point that a few well-placed hits from Batman. It's technically a joint victory, sure, but without Green Arrow's masterful aiming abilities, there's no way Batman could have trounced the American alien in the way he did.